Hi, welcome to the Jesus OS, where our miraculous scientific discovery meets our Catholic faith. There are certain things in Nikonic Caps and Catholicism, what we call the intersection, the Jesus OS, where there is an actual system that has implications, obviously morally and allegorically. There's an actual structure to the artistry. Now, oftentimes there's different interpretations to Scripture, and it seems as if the multiple meanings actually serve God better because it's so intricate. But although we believe that this is to be true, there also is challenges. So one of the ideas, as far as for the multiple interpretations of Scripture, is that there's different lenses upon which how you can look at a particular passage, and oftentimes saints differed in their interpretation of it. But the risk is with this is if you're not ultimately looking for an underlying foundation that doesn't change, then you don't truly have a deposit of faith. You don't truly have a Catholic dogma, and you then risk the challenge of modernity, of the modernism heresy that sees it as a forever progression towards somewhere, and like Scripture says, arriving toward nowhere. That we just keep improving this, but there's no objective reality outside of it. And so we are very mindful of this because, again, you take somebody like an Eckhart Tolle, who was big in the past and seems to be making somewhat of a comeback. You take Deepak Chopra, falls in the same category, and you take the fact that they're quoting Scripture throughout many of their books. So therefore, it seems as if, well, they're quoting Scripture, which therefore I should listen to it. And clearly, that would be an interpretation that we reject. And as we get closer to center, you're going to continue to go through this type of analysis. To that end, I think it is dangerous when someone looks at a particular passage and say, well, I think it means this. And obviously the difference between Catholicism and between the solas of Protestantism, clearly you would have very different interpretations of Scripture. And it's important to put this out there from the beginning, because there is a tension between the two, and that's the term that Audra and I continue to use. We coin in a particular way the tension of the two, the tension of the three, the tension of the transition, and the texture. Is all these different forms of tension that we have to really wrestle with if we are to truly follow Christ. So now, as we go back, we begin to look at this, begin to say the certainty upon which we have certain mappings are going to be stronger than other certainties that we have, meaning the correlation, the characteristics between what we've discovered scientifically and the correlations between what we know to be true or what we know that is pretty well consensus among Catholic theologians. When we have a stronger degree, then we'll say it, and when we have a less strong degree, then we'll also say it, because there's no reason for us to have mappings that we think, oh, this is definitely true. We never want to be like the Bible has, times where people are called to be prophets, and then they say what God didn't tell them to say, or didn't say what God did tell them to say, and both times it's not a good consequence to have. So in the same way, we're just trying to be as faithful as possible, and to what He wants us to do, and that's what we're going to proceed with. And I'll go through the Our Father hopefully later on today, if not tomorrow. But I think I first had to really put this out there because so many times you'll hear someone say, well, this is what I take from this parable, or this is what I take from it. And although God can have these multiple meanings and seen on multiple layers that the church itself says, the literal is still the most important. Without a literal resurrection, many of the other senses of Scripture really fall away, because the literal is what gives the credence, what gives the authority upon which the other Scripture to make the claim that it does. St. Paul says as much when he talks about without the resurrection, our faith would be futile. I don't remember the exact words, I'm paraphrasing there, but that is essentially it. So, thanks for joining me on this preamble to the Jesus OS, and either later on today or tomorrow, we'll begin it with the Our Father, followed by the Hail Mary.